Om Dakshinasya Samarambha Shankaracharya Madhyama Asmadacharya Paryanta Smarya Guru Parampara Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaran Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Pariknyanashrama Shri Guru Shankara Pariknyanashrama Shankara Sadguru Keshava Vamana Krishna Panduranga Ananda Parignana Guru Sadyo Jata Shankara Sadguru Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति. After, I think, a hiatus or a break of nearly 10 to 12 weeks, we are going to restart our Wednesday Vedanta sessions. We can take it as probably the second, the second series of our Vedanta sessions, which happened continuously on every Wednesday between 2020 and 2025. And throughout these 5 years, our Guru, Chitrapurmath Guru, our beloved Sadyojat Shankarashram Swamiji, Pujya Swamiji, was always encouraging and was always giving inputs so as to how to make these Vedanta sessions more interesting and more reachable to everybody as much as possible. At the same time, in the selection of the topics to be dealt with, Swamiji was always there to guide me and help me. It is only because of Pujya Swamiji's unwavering faith and confidence in me that I could give the teachings of Vedanta to the extent possible, to the best of my ability, as much as real as what really Vedanta talks about. I have tried in last 5 years not to put any of my ideas into whatever has been said, but to give the teachings of Vedanta and Upanishads exactly as I have received them from my gurus. And so that there is no personal bias or there is no question of adding anything personally. And this, I think, has really reached the listeners who have listened for the last 5 years. And when the last 2-3 weeks, 2-3 months, we didn't have these sessions, I was constantly asked by the listeners as to when the next series would start. And with the blessings of our Guru Parampara, with the blessings of Pujya Shri Sadyojat Shankarashrama Swamiji, our Chitrapurmath, Guru, Mathadisha, this time I have decided to start the second series or the new series with a new text, which is called as Vedantadindimah. Vedantadindimah is a small work of about 95 verses. It's a very small text of about 95 verses. But this text or this book can be called as a niddhidhyasana grantha. That means what? We have already heard that a mumukshu who goes through the Jnana Yoga or wants to study the Upanishads or the Shastra, there are 3 parts of this Jnana Yoga. That is Shravanam, Mananam and Niddhidhyasanam. Shravanam means that I really do not have any idea of what Vedanta is saying. I want to know what our scriptures, what our shastras talk about. As a mumukshu, as an adhikari for this knowledge, I am aware that there are things which are talked about in the shastras, especially in Vedanta Shastra, which is not available for any other means of knowledge. Like pratyaksha pramana, we call it pramana. Pramana means what? A means of knowledge. That means what would you utilize to learn something or get the knowledge of something. This is called as the pramana. So I'll just explain very briefly because we might have probably, forgotten what a pramana means. Pramana means that particular instrument of knowledge which we utilize to get the correct knowledge of a particular thing or whatever we want to know. Supposing I want to know an object in the world as to what it is, it should be available for any of my indriyas to recognize. Either it should be an object of my visual perception, or it should be an object of my hearing perception, or it should be an object which I can touch by my touch and understand what this object is, or that is something without any of these I can smell. Just the very smell of something, I can recognize that, oh, yeah, this is this. When I get an aroma of a particular flower when I'm passing by somewhere, I can say that, oh, there must be some roses here, or there must be some jasmine here. And there are some pramanas which are, there are some things, some objects which can be recognized by the taste. So all our five indriyas are capable of recognizing a certain object in the world, and this recognition of any object in the world outside using any one or more than one of our sense organs is called as pratyaksha pramana. Pratyaksha. Then we have another pramana called as anumana pramana. Anumana. I have not really perceived anything directly through my senses, but because of what I have perceived earlier, or because of my earlier knowledge, I'm able to infer something. For example, far away I see smoke arising. Now, I can infer from that inference that there must be a fire there because there is such a dark smoke coming out of that place. There must be definitely some fire there. I have not seen the fire. I have only seen the smoke. But then, by seeing the smoke, I infer that there must be fire there wherever the smoke is coming from. It is because of my previous experience that whenever there is smoke, there is fire. That is my previous experience by any of my sense organs. So now, even though I don't see fire directly or I don't perceive the fire through any of my sense organs, still I can infer. That is what is called as anumana pramana. Then we have another 2-3 pramanas. Let us not go too much detail into the other three. For name, I can say arthapatti pramana, where we have multiple steps of inference. Not like I see smoke and so there is a fire. That's not the thing. That is only a one-step inference. But when I use more than one step, this is what is called as an arthapatti. Arthapatti means whatever I have understood by anumana or inference, I project it further. I project it further, and in multiple steps, I try to come to a conclusion. That's what is called as arthapatti. Then we have another pramana or means of knowledge where I haven't seen something directly or experienced something directly, but a comparison can be given. A comparison can be given. I see some kind of an animal which, I have not seen, but I want to know what it is. So somebody tells me, that looks very much like a buffalo. No, that which we are talking about looks very much like a buffalo. That means comparison. Something which I already know is compared with something which I am yet to know or which I do not know. So that's called as upama or upamana. Then we have anupalabdhi. Anupalabdhi means something which is not there at all. Okay? So I hold my hand here and say, okay, there is an apple on my palm, but there is really nothing there. There is anupalabdhi. Anupalabdhi means something which is not there. Even if you try to perceive it through your sense organs, it is not there. Anupalabdhi. Out of these 5 pramanas, let us see whether what is talked about in Vedanta can be applied to any of these instruments of knowledge or pramana. What is talked about in Vedanta? Vedanta talks about what is bondage, how can I be free from this bondage of samsara, why this bondage has come, is there a means of escape from this bondage? If there is a means, then what is it? It is nothing but Atma Vidya. What does Atma Vidya talk about? Atma Vidya talks about the reality of myself, my real nature. Who am I? Don't I know who I am? I am this body. My name is so and so. I was born to such and such a set of parents. I was born in such and such a place. I'm having this degrees. I'm occupied here. This is my profession. Now we say, yeah, I know everything about myself. And this is how I introduce myself to everybody else in the world. But what Vedanta says is, no, this is not what you are. You're not your name. You're not your body. You're not, an entity, a body born on a particular date and place. You don't belong to any set of parents. Okay? You are not the degrees that you have achieved, your educational status, your professional status. You are neither of them. Then who are you or who am I? Vedanta says, you are that consciousness which is other than all these things. Now, this consciousness that I really am, which Vedanta says is my real nature, is it something that I can perceive as an object? No, it's not an object because it's the very subject. It's not Atma or myself, my reality, my true nature is not something which I can look into the mirror or look into a photograph or ask somebody else to tell me who I am or what I am. Because this, what is called as the Atma Vastu, is the very subject itself. And I'm so used to objectifying everything in this world. I feel that anything that has to exist has to be within my perception. Then only I will accept it. Therefore, I am the subject and everything else is an object, which is going to come here in this text. I'm only giving an introduction because I feel in the first class, in the very first session, we should go into the very, very basics of Vedanta where we have a strong introduction bit. Then we can go to the text. So here, Vedanta is talking about a very subtle thing. It may be myself, but it's talking about something very subtle which I'm not aware of, and something which cannot be perceived or objectified by the sense organs. Therefore, all my pramanas are useless. I can see my body. I can't even see my mind, isn't it? I can see my body. I can smell my body, I can touch my body, I can infer that because of certain symptoms, maybe this body is having this particular problem, I can infer. Similarly, about the mind also and the sense organs also, to some extent, direct perception and inference are possible. But when it comes to what the Vedanta talks about, the very Atma Vastu or the consciousness, it is just not possible to directly perceive it. We have seen that earlier. In these last 5 years, we have seen I am that Atma, which is the subject itself, which cannot be objectified by any of the means of knowledge I have got. Therefore, Vedanta says that, not only Vedanta, our gurus say that this specifically as to who am I, what is my reality, what is my real nature, what is the nature of this world. Is there something called as God or Ishvara who's running this body and its vyavahara with the entire universe? And if so, if there is something called as God or Lord or whatever you call it, what is the nature of this Lord? We call Ishvara. So what is the nature of this jiva, this body? What is the real nature of this jagat which I'm facing all the time and transacting? And what is the reality of that God or Ishvara because of whom this entire plan, this planned universe is functioning? None of these are available for my direct perception. Therefore, Vedanta is a special pramana. It is called as the Vedanta pramana or Shabda pramana, by which Vedanta tries to teach me, the mumukshu, about the very subtle realities of myself and the Jagat and Ishvara, which cannot be known by any other pramana. Follow? Therefore, what is talked about in Vedanta initially has to be grasped by Shravanam. Grasped, because Vedanta is trying to tell me, I'm coming to the 3 things we are doing in Jnana Yoga or accessing this knowledge or acquiring this knowledge. Shravanam, myself. Shravanam means listening about something which I have no idea about. No other means of knowledge can give me the idea of the thing which I want to know. It is only Vedanta words which are going to tell me or give me the idea of what I want to know. And it is only a sampradaya with Guru using Vedanta as the pramana can really give me this real knowledge. So this is the first step, Shravana. Listening again and again and again. One listening is not enough because I'm not used to this kind of a subtle subject. So Shravanam has to be done again and again and again using Vedanta pramana or teachings of Vedanta, Guru Mukhena, a guru who is capable of unfolding the truths of Vedanta. Then the next step is, I have heard enough, done enough of Shravanam. I have the Shraddha in the Guru, I have the Shraddha in the Shastra, and I have heard sufficiently. But whatever I have heard has to be made doubt-free. This process of making whatever I have gathered by Shravanam doubt-free is called as Mananam. Mananam means going over it again and again and again. I may have to listen again and again. I may have to ask questions to the Guru again and again. Basically to remove all my doubts. Shravanam alone cannot remove all my doubts. Shravanam gives me the basic knowledge or idea of some subtle thing, which is my reality, which is the reality of the Jagat, which is the reality of Ishvara also. But there are a lot of doubts in me. I'm sure you all have experienced this. Though we have been doing these sessions for the last 5 years, still there are a lot of doubts. We have to listen again and again. We have to ask appropriate questions, get the appropriate references from the Guru and Shastra, and see what is it saying. Are there any conflicts in in whatever way I have understood Vedanta? Is there a conflict in me or a wrong understanding on my part? Or is it really something that Vedanta is confusing me or what? So I have to get rid of these doubts, which is done by a process of manana. So after having sufficiently listened to Atmajnanam through the pramanam of Vedanta, I have to mull over it again and again and again and make my knowledge doubt free. This is the process of manana. Then comes that, yes, I know what Vedanta is saying. I know Aham Brahmasmi. I know Aham Satyam Jagan Mithya. I know Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. I know that there is no difference between me and Ishvara. I know doubtlessly, but it has not become the truth for me still. It has not yet become the reality or the truth for me because my knowledge is still indirect knowledge, what is called as the Paroksha Jnanam. Yes, I have the knowledge. I have understood. Intellectually, I have understood very clearly what is my nature, what is my real nature, what am I and what I am not, what is the reason for the present bondage of samsara that I am feeling and experiencing. I know that very clearly, verbally, intellectually, I have understood it very well. But there are a set of things called as viparita bhavanas in me, which I have carried on for millions and millions of lives till now. Okay? There are certain contradictory ideas in me, which by mere listening and by mulling over, contemplating, or that's not going to help me. So what do I need? I need the last step called as niddhidhyasanam. Niddhidhyasana means contemplating over the teachings that I have received through Vedanta Shravanam, that teaching which I have made doubtless by my Mananam, but that teaching which should get fully assimilated by me. It should become natural understanding and assimilation for me. This is what is called as actually the Aproksha Jnana. So this knowledge of Vedanta has to be converted from Paroksha Jnanam or indirect knowledge to Aproksha Jnanam or direct knowledge. This is the process of niddhidhyasana. Now, why am I talking about Shravanam, Mananam and niddhidhyasanam? In our scriptures, we have got definite granthas or definite, works written by many, many acharyas for the sake of mananam and niddhidhyasana. Shravanam, it is only through, it is Vedanta. Because Upanishads or Vedanta are apavurusheya. They are not written by anybody. Upanishads are the mantras that carry the knowledge, the self-knowledge. When this whole existence came into picture, transferred directly from Ishvara, and these mantras were caught, received by some of the drishtaras or rishis, and they were put together into understandable Upanishads. Therefore, these Upanishads, or what we call as Shruti, is apaurushaya. But the Upanishad teaching, after having done enough of Shravanam and Mananam, We need to go through this again and again, contemplate, meditate over the Vedantic truths to make this knowledge absolutely well assimilated. I can give you two examples for niddhidhyasanam and what it does. For example, we consume cooked food, right? Rice and this and that and all. But do you think that that food that we eat can directly give us the nutrition? No. That food which we have taken in has to go through a process of digestion, and all the nutrients have to be absorbed by the gut, and then these nutrients have to be shared by the Vyanavayu to each and every cell. So whatever idli I have eaten, whatever rice I have eaten, has to go to each and every cell in the form of the nutrients like carbohydrates, proteins, small, subtle nutrient particles. That's a process of digestion, assimilation. Similarly, whatever I have consumed in the form of Shravanam, cooked in the form of Mananam, has to be absorbed. It has to be absorbed very clearly so that every cell of me, my whole being, is aware of what is being talked about, what I have heard. 25 years I have been listening to Vedanta, Swamiji, people will tell, okay, you have gone through Vedanta for 25 years. Then Swamiji will say, how much of Vedanta has gone through you? Because enough of, filling our intellect with all the Vedanta words. But has any of that been converted into direct assimilable or what is called as Aprokshanubhuti? For this, niddhidhyasanam is necessary. Niddhidhyasanam is a process where I can take any of the Vedantic truths that are taught in Vedanta by the Guru and contemplate over it for sufficient amount of time so that whatever I have heard, whatever I have mulled over, whatever I have processed, this knowledge, this processed knowledge becomes the subtle knowledge, highly, properly assimilated by me. Which means that I have to be absorbed in that knowledge. I'll give you one more example. Supposing I'm drinking a glass of milk and I want it sweet. So I put 2 teaspoons of sugar in that. Then what do? I start drinking it just like that. The milk is not sweet. Why? There is sugar there at the bottom. 2 teaspoons of sugar are there in the bottom of the glass. But every particle of milk, every drop of milk is not imbibed with this sweetness. So what do? I take a spoon or a stirrer and stir this. When I stir this sugar, it dissolves, it becomes one with the entire content of the milk. Every drop of milk contains the sweetness of the sugar. That means this sugar that I have added has been very beautifully assimilated and absorbed by the milk. So now you can drink milk from this side or from this side in small sips or large sips, whatever it is, cold or hot or lukewarm, whatever it is. Every drop of milk will taste sweet. Niddhidhyasana is this process. Adding sugar is like Shravanam, remembering it and then, processing it. But if I don't do the stirring, I go on adding the sugar, go on listening, go on listening, go on listening. I have no doubts. My knowledge is doubt free, but nothing has happened. I'm the same samsari all over again. There's no change in me at all. Why? Because whatever has been accumulated has not been assimilated. The accumulated knowledge has not been stirred sufficiently to become in direct knowledge, or what we call as the Aprokshanubhuti. Niddhidhyasanam is the process of converting or assimilating this knowledge which I have acquired through the Guru and Shastra. So, now, why all this introduction? Because I said we are taking up a text called Vedantadindimah, which is a niddhidhyasana grantha. Niddhidhyasana grantha means, since we have already studied Vedanta for 5 years, so when we start the second series, let's start revising what we have done. And let us take up a text which is a niddhidhyasana grantha. We know all the facts, but let us remind ourselves and let us see whether this knowledge that we have accumulated over the last 5 years, is it possible for me to do niddhidhyasanam with this grantha? Grantha means it need not be a big one. Even a small 10 verses also can be a grantha. It means, it means a text. Okay, it is a prakarana written by somebody, taking out all the important Vedantic truths and putting them in his own words in the verse form, so that it helps us in niddhidhyasana. What is the speciality of a niddhidhyasana grantha? A niddhidhyasana grantha is something where the verses may not be in a particular order. For example, Bhagavad Gita, we found that everything is in a proper order. First 6 chapters are meant for Tvampada Vichara. The next 6 chapters are the Tatpada Vichara. Then the last 6 chapters, the final Shatkam, is the Asipada, Tat Tvam Asi, the Mahavakya Vichara, that portion of it. So that's a definite, a proper way of unfolding of Bhagavad Gita. Similarly, all the Upanishads, they have a proper way of unfolding themselves. There is a connection or a sambandha between one verse and the other. There is a definite connection between one chapter and the other. If there is a sub-chapter, there is a connection between the previous sub-chapter and the next sub-chapter. So, the Shravana Granthas, the Manana Granthas follow a set of pattern and they go from topic to topic to topic. But a niddhidhyasana grantha need not follow this order. There need not be any kind of a definite connection between different verses. There need not be a definite connection between one chapter and the other. So what happens here is, any number of verses that are there, for example, I said there are 95 verses in this Vedantadindimah. We can say they are quite loosely strewn around. Loosely. You might even find some connection. Sometimes we do find from one verse to the other, some kind of a loose connection is definitely found. It's not that it is as though it is scattered. No. Some small little connection here, there between the verses, we may definitely be able to find. At least in the first 5-6 verses, we're definitely able to see a connection, one group. Sometimes the niddhidhyasana, granthas have verses which are in different groups dealing with one idea, with one Vedanta truth. A group of verses talking about one particular truth of Vedanta. So like that, we may find some kind of a loose connection, some verses grouped into a few groups. That we may find even in this. But in a niddhidhyasana grantha, classically, a strong sambandha between verse to verse and chapter to chapter, subchapter to subchapter may not really exist at all. It may not exist there. Here also, in this grantha also, therefore, we'll find that one may find a loose type of grouping of certain mantras together. Here we can't call them mantras, we call them shlokas, because this is not an Upanishadic granth. This is something which is written by a particular Acharya for benefiting the mumukshus for niddhidhyasanam. The verses of Upanishads are called as mantras, whereas the verses of any other, like Bhagavad Gita also, or any other, are called as shlokas. So in these also, we have got verses or shlokas, which are kind of loosely connected together, giving a certain ideas in a group of verses. Now, the next thing we have to know is what is the meaning of this particular name called as Vedanta Dimdima. Vedanta Dimdima has two portions in this, the title. Vedanta Dimdima. Two together, Vedanta Dimdima. We already know what Vedanta is, correct? Vedanta means that knowledge which talks about the reality of the individual, of the Jagat, and of Ishvara. Okay, so that is Vedanta. Vedanta also, the name of the portion of the Vedas, the last portion of the Vedas, the terminal portion of Vedas is also called Vedanta. Vedanta also means that knowledge which gives me the reality of Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara, and ultimately frees me from my samsara bandhana, or my, bondage of samsara. And Vedanta can also mean words of Vedanta. Vedanta also means Upanishads. The Upanishads are also called as Vedanta because the Upanishads come in the last portion, or it's called as the head of the Vedas because it's something to be understood. It's not simply to be done like in the Veda Purva. It is something that needs to be understood by the intellect. Therefore, Vedanta is also known as Upanishads. What is the meaning of Dimdima? Vedanta is Upanishads. Dimdima means what? Proclamation, or that which is very, very strongly, loudly proclaimed by the Upanishads. But how did this word Dindima come? Dimdima it is actually. And while, when we talk about this, we just say Dindima, we say, but it is Dimdima. Dimdima means a bell, a kettle, this one, what you call, drums, kettle drums. Drums, Dimdima means. We know that earlier in the, olden times, when something had to be proclaimed or something had to be announced to the world, to the people, to the society, what was the method of coming to the society and announcing something? Like we still have public address systems, isn't it? We have public address systems here. We do have now our social media, everything, newspapers, everything is there. But in those days, when the communication was not that good, and when a large number of people had to be announced something, the only method of it was using the drums. And, the drummers would go area to area, beat their drums, and attract the attention of people that, oh, some announcement is going to be made important, and they would all come out of their houses and gather near that person who beat the drums to listen to what message was being brought. So Dimdima also means the drum beats which announce something, or the drum beats which proclaim something. So here, the name Vedanta Dimdima is the title given because here, whatever are the teachings of Vedanta are being proclaimed like drum beats. Like every verse of this Vedanta Dimdima is like a drum beat which is giving out, which is proclaiming a particular Vedantic truth for the purpose of niddhidhyasanam. Therefore, this is called as Vedantadindimah. And why Vedantadindimah? Again, another reason. Every shloka, every verse ends with what is called as iti Vedantadindimah. Iti Vedantadindimah. So, in the anushtup chandas that is there, the first three parts talk about the reality, that or the Vedantic truth, and the last portion in every verse is iti Vedantadindimah. That means the author wants to say that whatever I have written in the first three parts of this chandas, this particular anushtup chandas verse is not my own idea. It is Vedantadindimah. It is a proclamation of Vedanta. Every verse at the end it says iti Vedantadindimah is a proclamation of Vedanta. This is the truth that is given out by the Upanishads. This is what at the end of every verse the author wants to make very clear. So now we know that number one, Vedantadindimah is a niddhidhyasana grantha. Vedantadindimah is a collection of about 95 verses in anushtup chandas. Every verse ending with iti Vedantadindimah, where the author wants to make it very clear that whatever ideas have been given in this verse are nothing but the proclamation of Upanishads. But I am bringing it in this particular way, in this particular words, my own words, for the sake of facilitating niddhidhyasanam in every mumukshu. So the next question that is asked is, who is the author of this Vedantadindimah? Many people, as usual, say Shankaracharya, Adi Shankaracharya. But it has not been proved that it is Adi Shankaracharya's work. There is a well-known Vedantin called as Narasimha Saraswati. And this book is attributed to Shri Narasimha Saraswati Acharya. Many people still say the way it is written, the lalityam of the verses, the way the verses are constructed, it must be Adi Shankaracharya's work, but there is no proof for that. What is said here is that most of the scholars, most of the Vedantins agree that this is a work by an Acharya, an Advaita Acharya called Narasimha Saraswati, who has written many other books also, like a commentary on Vedanta Sara, etc., have been written by this person. And Narasimha Saraswati is the Acharya for this particular Vedantadindimah book. That's what is said here. So now it doesn't matter who has written it, as long as it is written in such a way that it becomes something useful for us. Even one verse per day, if we take up, one verse per day, if we mull over it or if we contemplate over it, it serves as a great niddhidhyasana shloka for us, the niddhidhyasana shloka. And therefore, this is the work of Narasimha Saraswati in the form of a bouquet of around 95 verses, very loosely connected subject-wise, but generally strewn around. Very simple language, very easy to chant, anushtup chandas, talking about all the truths that Upanishads teach us, which we have gathered during our Shravanam and Mananam. This is a niddhidhyasana grantha, and this is what we know as Vedantadindimah. Now, as we have always seen any of the Prakarana Granthas, not only Prakarana Granthas, even Upanishads always start with a Shanti Pata, right? Any commentary on the Upanishads, like Bhagwan Shankaracharya starting a commentary on any Upanishad, or on Bhagavad Gita starts always with the Mangalacharana Shloka. Mangalacharana Shloka always is given. When any author writes a Manana Grantha or Niddhidhyasana Grantha, always there is a Mangalacharanam. What is a Mangalacharanam? Asking for blessings and grace of Ishvara and Guru. For what purpose? That I am going to start this particular work. Let this work have no obstacles on the way. Let this work be completed. Let this work that I have taken up be not associated with any of my buddhi doshas. Let there not be any conflicting statements in whatever I am writing. Whatever I am writing as a grantha, let it reach the hands of the adhikaris. Otherwise, what's the purpose? Isn't it? So, let right ideas come to me. Let the right Upanishadic mantras come to my mind. Let the right interpretation of these mantras, let it come. Let there be no obstacles or obstructions during this work. Let this work be completed in the best possible time, and let this not be forgotten. Let this work not be destroyed by some floods or by fire or something which used to happen earlier. It is said that earlier, before all this print medium and all that came, so many acharyas would have written so many granthas, but it seems they were all written on these leaves, leaves or whatever. They were all, many times they were lost. Bhagwan Shankaracharya's life only we find that something which he had written, it was, natural disasters like fire and floods, etc. Whatever was written was completely lost. Completely lost. So such things should not happen. This grantha which I have written, means the author is going to write, it should be protected. It should be there available to the society and to the mumukshus for a long period of time. It should reach the right people, the adhikaris who are going to get benefited by this particular knowledge. For that reason, to invoke the grace of the Lord, Ishvara, to invoke the grace of the Guru, and both, there would always be an invocatory verse or a verse called as Mangalacharanam. Mangalacharana verse would be to ask for blessings also, to ask for Ashirvada also. Ashirvada Rupi Mangalacharanam it could be. It could be praying for the grace, or some of the Mangalacharana shlokas could be revealing the tattva of what is going to be disclosed in this work itself. So there are different types of Mangalacharana shlokas. So today we'll just start the first shloka, which is the Mangalacharana shloka written by Acharya Narasimha Saraswati as an introduction and to invoke the blessings of Ishvara and Guru in the form of a Mangalacharana shloka for his work called as Loud Proclamation of Upanishadic Truths, which is called as Vedantadindimah. So with this rather a long introduction, but I thought it was necessary since this was the first session and we are not really, in a hurry to complete any text. It's not the number of texts that we have done. It's not the number of Upanishads that we have done. It's not the number of times that we have chanted Bhagavad Gita. It's ultimately, how much of what I have studied has gotten into me. Okay, that is very, very important. Number is not important. How much I have assimilated, and this is a niddhidhyasana grantha, and therefore let us take it at our own pace, not too slow, not too fast, but sufficient enough for all of us to literally dip into this book of Niddhidhyasana. So let's read the Mangalacharana shloka. It says, Vedantadindimastatvam ekam udghoshayanti yat astam purastat tejo Dakshinamurthy sannitam. Maybe many of you may not have this text with you, but if I'm not mistaken, it is, I think the PDF form is available on the internet. So you can download it and see. It's not necessary for you to buy the book. It may not even be available everywhere. So you can even download it. So the Mangalacharanam says, Vedantadindimaha Tattvam ekam udghoshayanti yat. So how do we break it? How do we arrange this properly? Okay. Vedantadindimaha ekam tattvam udghoshayanti. That means what? All these Vedantadindimaha, all these 95 verses of the drum beats of Vedanta, loud proclamation of the Upanishad, ekam tattvam udghoshayanti. One tattvam, every verse is going to talk about. What is that tattvam? Atma tattvam. It is said that Upanishads say that only one tattva is there, one reality is there called as Brahma, Brahman or Parabrahma. Parabrahma or Brahman or the consciousness, existence, we call it. What is Brahman? Isness, existence, consciousness, awareness, and fullness or completeness. We call it Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. Sat, Chit, Ananda, Atma. That means there is only one thing. There is only one Tattvam. Tattva means the very content, the Saram. There is only one thing, only one Vastu, which is present everywhere in the form of existence, consciousness, and complete Purnatvam. Purnatvam, complete. There's nothing else other than this. There is only one Tattvam. So what is said here? All the Vedantas, means all the Upanishads, what do they talk about? They talk about only this one Tattvam, which is existence, consciousness, and Purnatvam. In different ways. Every Upanishad talks about this in different ways. It talks about it from the point of view of the individual Tvam Padartha. The Upanishads talk about the same Tattva from the point of view of the total Jagat. The same Tattvam, the truth is talked about from the point of view of Ishvara also. There is one Tattvam which is in and through all the Jivas, the entire Jagat and Ishvara. And that Tattvam, which is of the Swarupam of existence, isness, consciousness, the I-ness or the awareness, and Purnatvam, completeness. This particular thing, which is called as Parabrahma or Brahman, is the only Tattvam of this entire universe. And all the Vedantas, means what? All the Upanishads are talking about only this. And therefore, all that is going to be talked about, Hey Ishvara, Hey Guru, this is what I'm going to incorporate in these verses of Vedantadindimah. And he says, okay, that Tattvam, that single one and the only Tattvam called as Brahman or Parabrahman, Astam Purastat Tejah Dakshinamurthy Sannitam. Okay. That tattva called as Atma Tattva or Parabrahma Tattva, that light of consciousness, that tejaha, that light of consciousness, may it appear before us in the form of Lord Dakshinamurthy. So here the author is seeking the blessings of Lord Dakshinamurthy. So Vedantadindimah, on the proclamations of all the Upanishads, ekam tattvam udghoshayanti yat, that one tattvam which is declared, talked about by all the Upanishad, let that light of consciousness, let that tattvam, that light of consciousness called as Parabrahma or Brahman, may that itself bless us in the form of Lord Dakshinamurthy. So, tat tejaha astam purastat. Okay? Astam purastat. Let it be in front of the. Hey Dakshinamurthy, you, the very light of consciousness, the very embodiment of consciousness, the very embodiment of all knowledge of Vedanta, may you be there in front of me, the writer, in front of those people who are going to be the readers and the contemplators, astam purastat, in front of all of us, in front of me. Let that Teja Punja, called as Dakshinamurthy, the Adi Guru, who is the very embodiment of consciousness and the one who taught this, what this consciousness is, as the Adi Guru to Sanakadi Shishyas, and through whom we all have understood or to some extent been exposed to this Upanishads. Let that Teja Punjaha called Dakshinamurthy be always in front of us as a teacher and bless us. So this is the blessing that is being taken by, which is being, which the author prays for himself and also for all of us who are studying this particular Prakarana Grantha. So with this introduction, I think we'll go deeper into this also the next time, and then we'll take up 5 or 6 verses every session. Om Nandantu Sadhaka Sarve Vinashyantu Vidushakaha Avastha Shambhavi Mestu Prasannostu Guru Sada Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukkham Apnuyat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat.